I don't know how your deer season is going, but if it's anything like mine, small game may be making an appearance on the dinner menu a little bit more often. Here we've got a rabbit and a squirrel. My daughter doesn't care for vegetables, and this dish calls for vegetables, so I'm saving these back legs off this rabbit just for her. While these two pieces of meat are relatively similar, to me, a rabbit is a little bit lighter in color and tastes more like turkey, and a squirrel is slightly darker and tastes like chicken thighs. But at this point, we're really splitting hairs. Sorry about that, but honestly, at this point, you really should have known that was coming. Anyway, I'm going to hit all these with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and MSG. And then this will be the last time you see these legs. But in addition to the salt, pepper, garlic powder, and MSG, I'm also hitting them with a little bit of Dijon mustard seasoning. And like I said, they're just not going to have vegetables with them when my daughter eats them. And we're going to put just enough chicken broth to cover the bottom of the crock pot here, probably half a cup or a little bit more, and then cook them covered on low for about 4 hours, and they should be fall off the bone tender at this point. We are doing some garlic cheddar biscuits for the cobblery part of this cobbler, and I've just melted some butter and added a tablespoon or so of garlic powder. I am going to put a little bit of butter in this dish so it's greased, and then you could do this separately, but I just didn't want to wash any extra dishes, so this is kind of an upside down cobbler, if you will. But I just get 3 cups of self-rising flour, my 1 stick of butter that I have melted here, and about a cup of milk, and then just start making my biscuit dough and then pushing it down into the corners of this glass dish. I did forget to mention that I added about a half a cup of mild cheddar here, and also my batter is a little bit dry, so I'm adding just a little bit of milk as I go. Once the dough comes together, I take this rubber spatula and I add a little bit of oil to it just so that it doesn't stick to it, and then I evenly spread it from corner to corner, and then I come back in the middle and I make it slightly thinner because that's going to be the spot that takes the longest to cook, so you'll get a more even cook if it's a half an inch or so thinner in the center of this dish than it will be edge to edge. Unless you've given it plenty of time to cool, this meat is going to be hot, so you may want to hold it with one hand and use a fork to help you peel off some of the meat from the bone here, but it should be a very easy process. These bones should come out very cleanly, and here you can really tell where the difference in the lighter and darker colored meats between the rabbit and the squirrel. Of course, this dish would be fantastic with either or if you had two of either, or chicken if you don't have either of any, but I'm using what I have on hand and what we've currently shot this year. You have got to love a crock pot because it has made this job super easy, and you should just be left with a pile of meat and a pile of bones. We're just going to use the meat for this recipe though. You could go the easy way out and just use a can of cream of chicken, but since I've got this beautiful broth here left in the crock pot, I'm just going to make a brown gravy really quickly. I've got a couple of tablespoons of butter here that I have melted, and to that I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of flour. Roux here is just equal parts grease and flour. We're going to cook this until the flour is no longer raw, which should take a minute to 2 minutes, and then when we're ready we can start adding some of that broth in on top. As we go to deglaze this, if you notice you don't have enough broth in your crock pot left for whatever reason, you can still use some of the chicken stock that we added earlier if you have any of it left. But this should work out just about right. And then once we get our gravy about the consistency we want, we will add in 1 can of veg oil, and then we're going to throw all of that meat also back in on top of this gravy and just let everything kind of soak there for a couple of minutes. And once we've got everything ready in the skillet, we can move it over to our biscuit dough here, unless you're making a right side up cobbler, and then you can put it in a pan and put the dough on top, and that would probably be much easier. If you're doing it this way, you probably should cover this with aluminum foil at this point because that meat and stuff will tend to dry out. This needs to bake for probably 25 to 30 minutes on 425. It's nice having that glass dish because you can see as the biscuits get done when it's ready to pull, but just keep that in mind. Again, like I said, you should probably cover this with foil. I did about 10 minutes in when I realized that it was going to be kind of dry if I didn't. And as we can see here, this is beautiful, comes out great. And if somebody has a problem with it being upside down, you can always just flip it over the other direction and they'll never know. Thanks for watching, guys. Really hope you all enjoyed.